everybody, I'm Diane Mulligan. I'm a teacher, artist, and writer from Central Massachusetts. And in this video, I want to help my fellow watercolor artists and pastel artists and anybody who does framing of their work behind glass to level up their frame game and make sure that what they're doing is going to preserve their work and be a really high quality product. When I was first reaching the point with my watercolors where I was ready to start framing things and putting them on my walls and submitting them out to galleries, I almost didn't bother because I was so overwhelmed by the process of framing my work. I felt like frames were going to be really expensive. I didn't know how to do it myself, and I couldn't find good, concise information online to help me make good decisions. So I was kind of making it up as I went along. And over the course of the past few years, I have learned much better ways of working, and I've learned how to make the most of both inexpensive store-bought frames and also how to order really nice custom-made frames that will preserve my work for a long time. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and let's get started. So the very first thing that you need to do before you're going to do any framing is clean the space that you're going to use. So you want to be starting in a space where you have already dusted, vacuumed, and done your best to make sure you're not going to be trapping debris behind your frames. So today we are in my dining room, and I have already run the vacuum. I've cleaned and dusted and gotten my dining room table ready to go. And so let's get to work. All right, first thing, let's talk about supplies. So you do need some supplies for framing. This is one of the things that overwhelmed me and that made me think framing might not be worth my time, but it's not a huge investment, and it turns out having the right tools makes this job a million times easier. So what I have here in front of me, I have some paper hinging tape. And this is very affordable, and it's a huge roll that will probably last me the rest of my life. I have some double stick tape and some artist tape. Yes, I have 3 kinds of tape. I have a clean sponge, a microfiber cloth, and you can see it's in its packaging, and I've written framing only on it. This lives in a box in my studio, and it only comes out for framing. I also have some acrylic cleaner, and I buy this from the same place where I buy my frames. You should never clean acrylic with Windex, okay? So if you are framing your paintings behind acrylic instead of behind glass, we'll talk about that more in a minute, then you might want to invest in some acrylic cleaner. And the last special thing I have is a paperweight. This is some fossilized wood, but a nice heavy paperweight. Other than that, we just need our artwork and our frames. So I'm going to go ahead and grab mine, and I'll show you what we're working with. All right, so this is the first frame we're going to talk about today. You can see I already have some artwork in here, and this is an inexpensive frame that I bought at Michael's. I actually have several of this exact frame because it is actually made of wood, which is hard to find at Michael's, and it's the size that best suits most of my paintings. So when I was first deciding to submit my work to galleries, one of the decisions that I made was I was going to pick a standard size to work in, and if I always worked in that size, I would know that my paintings were going to fit well in my frames. This was a pretty practical decision because I didn't want to have to buy tons and tons of frames. At the time, I wasn't even thinking of selling my artwork, and I just wanted to be able to hang the work on the walls of my own home. And I wanted to be able to switch them out when I made new work. I wanted to put new work in it. So that's exactly what I've done. I bought some inexpensive frames. These ones I think are $39.99, so that's pretty affordable. And I change the work that's in these frames all the time. The reason I have more than one was when I started showing work, then I had the one on my wall, the one that was out, and I ended up getting them on like buy one, get one free. So the great thing about these frames, they're affordable, they're easy to get, The downside, and there are several, is that first of all, this is glass, not acrylic. And you might be thinking, surely glass is better than acrylic. And it's not, actually. Glass breaks. This glass is not UV protective, and it's not anti-glare. So this is actually really inexpensive glass. And this kind of glass is much cheaper than acrylic, and it's less desirable. Many of the galleries I work with specifically require you to use acrylic instead of glass. So that's a downside. Because this is a standard size frame, places like Michael's, you can actually get them to cut acrylic to order if you want. I looked into this size frame. It would cost about $40 to get UV protective acrylic for this size frame, and that's actually as much as the frame cost. So for me, for these frames, that didn't make a lot of sense, and I've chosen to just stick with the glass in these. That's our first drawback. Second drawback is this backing. So we've got a plain black backing. It's easy to take apart, so that's convenient. What's not good about it is this is not an Archival product. So this backing board is not acid-free, and that means if this sits directly against your paper artwork, over time, this can damage and yellow your painting. And if you're trying to protect your work, you don't want that. So what I've actually done here is I have a painting I never finished because I didn't like how it was going. And I have simply tucked that in the same size paper as my artwork. And so this essentially ruined painting is now protecting the painting that I wanted to keep. The next thing I want you to notice here is how I've attached the mat. So I'm gonna switch my camera up for a minute and then we'll talk about matting these. Okay, so hopefully you can see here that the way I have included this in the mat is I have not taped it in place. Instead, I've used photo mounting squares, these little plastic mounting squares like you might use in a photo album. And what this allows is it allows me to place the painting into that mat without doing any damage to the painting. If I had taped it in and I wanted to undo it, and I might tear the paper. So the photo mounting squares make this easily reversible. I can just pull this painting right out, no problem. And as I told you before, what I like to do with these frames is swap my paintings in and out. So I need a reversible process. So I started using the photo mounting squares. What you can't see on here is how I normally have aligned this to actually make sure that the painting is centered. So what I did was set up a template with another mat of this exact same size, and then because I had a template, it's really easy to fit. But let me tell you my shortcut that I would use for centering my painting. Basically, you get your yardstick or measuring tape and you measure the length and width of the mat and draw lines at the center points. And then do the same thing for your paper. So you find the center point of the long side and short side. And then all you have to do is align those tick marks like a bullseye. And if the center of your paper aligns with the center marks of the mat in both directions, it's going to be centered, which is super handy. Then you can put your photo mounting squares and you centered your painting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this one back together. So the reason I'm taking this one apart today, when it was already matted, is I want to give this frame one more level of finish. And it's not a level of finish I always use, but it's a level of finish I think this painting needs, because this painting is headed off tomorrow to a gallery. So, when you get a professionally framed painting, you may have noticed the back is usually covered in paper, and then the wire is attached on the outside of the paper. And I'm going to do that to this frame, and I'm going to show you my process there. The first thing that means is I have to take this wire off. So this wire is just through the D-rings, which was good enough, but isn't really the best strategy. So I'm going to take this wire off, and I'm going to go ahead and seal this in. The reason that you might want to finish your frames with paper is it's one more layer of protection, and it's going to keep any dust out of your painting and just help preserve the painting some more. So I'm going to get the wire the rest of the way off and show you what we'll do with this. All right, one more supply that I forgot to mention, and that is some basic craft paper. So this is just brown craft paper, and I'm going to go ahead and put my painting, my frame down here. I have it upside down just so that I'm not like touching that glass constantly, even though I'm going to have to clean it again at the end. That's okay. And I'm going to align this and try to have as little excess as possible. And of course, there's always one more supply that you need, and that is my pencil. So what we're going to do here is just mark out our size and trim this down. So I'm actually going to cut slightly inside the line that I just drew because I want the paper to be slightly smaller than the frame. We certainly don't want any excess, but we want it to just cover the back of the frame. Now, I don't always do this to my paintings. If I'm just hanging something in my home, for instance, then I don't paper it because, as I've already said, I like to swap paintings in and out of frames, and if you paper over it, you've sealed it off and you can't easily swap things around. That said, I am not anticipating taking this painting back out of its frame. Hopefully, when we put it off to the gallery, it finds a new home. And even if it doesn't find a new home, I'm thinking this one is a keeper and it's worth keeping in a frame. So, I have cut my paper, and check how I did on size here. Hopefully pretty okay. Yeah, that's just about right. Might have a little bit I have to trim off at the end. Yeah, that looks pretty okay. So I am using double stick tape to put this down onto the frame. Double stick tape. I don't need anything archival here. It's not going to hurt the frame. The painting is all sealed and protected, so I'm just trying to attach this basically. And I'm going to start with this edge because that's the way the paper is rolled. So this is just regular old double-sided tape. Oh yeah, okay. There we go. All right, so as I said, I'm just gonna run this nice and straight. Okay. And then grab my paper, line that up as straight as I can. Just give it a good press. All right, and I'm gonna repeat that with my other sides, and then this painting will be all sealed in and tucked in for its own protection. Once I have that done, I'll come back and show you how we attach the wire. And next thing I want to do is make sure I have it right side up because I'm going to attach the wire. And one more tool I didn't already mention, and that is a ruler, a yardstick, a measuring tape. What we need to do is we need to measure about 1/3 of the way down, and that's where we're going to attach our wire. And I've already lost my pencil. So this frame is about 17 inches long. So I'm gonna go down a little, like about 5.5, is that right? Let's pause while Diane does math. 1/3, 3 times 5 is 15. So a little bit more than 5. Honestly, that looks too far down. I'm gonna go with 5. I think 5 is gonna be better than 5.5. So I'm just gonna make a little mark here, and I'm gonna repeat that over here. And this is where, if you have, I put my marks going in different directions. Okay. All right. So if you have an electric drill, a cordless drill, now is a great time to use it. I keep all my framing supplies down here because this is the room where I do my framing. And I'm just going to use a screwdriver because this wood is pretty soft. So I have plenty of picture wire here. Actually, I can probably use this shorter bit. I have all kinds of the tools that I might need here. And I have my D-rings. This might be too big. No, that'll be good. All right, talking to myself and you. I have a pair of D-rings. Oh yeah, and screws. So a pair of D-rings. I have a pair of small screws to go with those D-rings. And I have my screwdriver. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in place, and then we'll stick the wire on it. All right. So as you can see, I've got my D-ring attached. The other one's already on. In fact, I've already got some wire attached to it. And I forgot to tell you that you will be needing some kind of wire cutter. This is actually a guitar string trimmer, but I find it works really well for this purpose. And you don't need loads of extra wire. So we don't want it to be like too taut, but also if you have too much slack in it, it makes your painting hang funny. So I'm gonna take, I don't need obviously all this that I have here, so I'm gonna cut it before I even fix this end. And I'm not showing you the first one I put on because I had to fight with it for a minute. So I'm gonna hope this one goes smoother. All right, I'm gonna pass the wire up through there. I'm gonna come around behind and back up. Nope, that did not go as planned. That's okay. I feel like this one, oh, there we go. I see what I did. I see what I did. All right, so I'm gonna come back around behind it and pass it under. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm making a little hitch around the D-ring. There's still a little more slack in there than I would like. I'm gonna try to pull it a bit tighter. So, you know, we're gonna let gravity do its work here. But if you leave too much slack, it's, if you've ever seen paintings that really like, they're tilting far away from the wall, they probably have too much slack. And I guess if you're hanging it up really high, you might want that, but All right, and now we're just gonna go ahead. We've made our hitch. Gonna give it a few good little twists. This is not my #1 skill, I admit it. And all it really needs is 3 or 4, just like that. And I'm gonna leave this slack on here just in case we want it. All right, that's pretty good. And give it a little trim. And we're good to go. So there you can see paper, wire, all attached, and this painting is ready to hang. A little slack, not too much. All right, so our key takeaway here, or several takeaways that we want to have when we're using a store-bought frame like this, is just keep in mind that, again, the glass is something that can break. So if you're shipping this, you need to pack it really carefully. And also it's not UV protected. So you really want to hang pictures out, like well out of direct sunlight if you're using these off-the-shelf frames. Also remember that you need to protect your painting from that backing board, because that backing is not acid-free and it will harm your painting over time. So if you care about preservation of your work, please just put a buffer in between. Take a failed painting, pop it in there, you'll protect your work. If you want to give your painting a little extra professional polish, you can apply craft paper to the back to seal it in. And then when you attach your wire, a little slack, but not too much slack. And that's how we can make the best use of our store-bought frames. Now, I have been gradually phasing out my inexpensive Michaels frames, and I've been moving towards a more archival finish for my paintings. So here's one that is in the style of frame I've moved to using. This is also a wood frame. This was made by American Frame, and this is not a sponsored post. All opinions are my own. I paid for these frames, and it's a company based in Ohio. They have great customer service. I've been super happy with them. Their website is ridiculously easy to use to make sure that your frame is sized right. The frames come assembled, ready to go, and all you have to do is a little bit of work to clean the acrylic. It comes with a protective film, and I'm going to show you all that in a minute because I have a brand new frame that we're going to use. In fact, I'm going to do a little bit of an unboxing video for you here, because I needed a frame for this painting, which is an unusual size for me, so I can't reuse an existing frame. And this one is heading off to a gallery as well, so I had to get a new frame for it. And so let's do a little bit of unboxing. So first thing that we can notice about these lovely American frames situations is that they come really, really nicely packaged. And so I'm just gonna try to open this up for you. But they do such a great job, and they're so quick. I ordered this frame Monday evening, and it was here on a Thursday, so that's pretty great. My bearings here. And if you are going to end up having to ship your work, so if you're making work that you're going to sell, the frame to ship, their boxes would be absolutely the right size to use. It's a little messy in here. Okay, so you can see this. Inside that first heavy duty box, we have these protective cardboard corners that are holding everything in place, and it is it's fixed in place with these straps, so that it absolutely can't move around anywhere. So we have to undo all of that. Okay. The frames all come with hanging hardware. Just set that aside. And within all of this protection, they have even more layers of protection with a bubble wrap, which I always try to open in such a way that I can reuse it like an envelope. Which they're usually, I mean, they're packed so nicely. You have to order right now. I think it's like $200 worth to get free shipping, which I didn't do in this case, but I just paid for shipping. Worth it. And so in here, got my frame. It has, the acrylic is in it with a protective film. It has archival backing, and it's ready for me. So I'm gonna clear the decks here and I'll walk you through my framing. All right. I have liberated the mat and backing from the frame, and I'm going to show you another way of matting your work where it's reversible and it will not damage your artwork, and it's actually even easier than the process I showed you before. So with the Michaels frame, right, I suggested using the photo mounting squares, which work really great. And they don't damage the paper, and they work for those off-the-shelf frames because you would never want to mount your painting to a non-archival backing, and also you want it, again, to be easily reversible. So the photo mounting squares are a great option, but if you're gonna be framing something a little more permanently, this is an even better way. So I'm gonna pop this out of here. So the first thing we want to do is line up our mat and our backing, and we're going to do a book fold. So I'm just aligning them, the tops of both of them, and this is where I'm going to use my artist tape. So this is just basic white artist tape. Any kind of painter's tape will do. And what I'm going to do here is create a hinge. And I just want to really align them tightly and carefully and really give that tape a good smush into place. And close it and just press it down nice and firmly. So now we've got our mat and backing. We can put our painting in, and now I can carefully align the painting and just gently nudge it and move it until it's exactly where I want it, which is right there. And now I'm going to take my paperweight and hold that in place. And I'm going to reopen this situation up. This is where our hinging tape comes into play. And I need to get a little bit of water on my sponge to make this work. So I will be right back. All right, so what I have here, I have wet my sponge, and I have cut some little pieces of hinging tape. I'm going to press this against my damp sponge so that it's wet but not like dripping. But I really want that adhesive to be wet. And then I'm going to slide it adhesive side up under my painting. And what I'm doing here is sticking it to my watercolor paper. So I'm making a little tab that sticks up at the top. And what's great about this is you use water to activate it, and then if you want to undo this, so you want to take this painting out of this frame because maybe you're going to reuse it, you would just wet it again, and these tabs will loosen and come right off, and it won't damage anything. Okay, so just give them some good pressure. And the paperweight is holding my painting exactly where I wanted it. So when I'm done with this and I close the flap of my mat, the painting's going to be perfectly in place. So now I'm wetting the other adhesive strip, and I'm just putting it right over that tab and firmly pressing it to the backing board. So now it is the tab that's stuck to the backing and not the painting. Pretty clever, right? Just repeat this with my other tab, and this painting should be well affixed. This is so much easier than aligning the photo mounting squares. So I told you my trick about centering the paper and everything, which totally works. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure other people have thought of it, but I figured it out on my own. I didn't learn it from any tutorials. All right. So much easier. So we now have our matted painting. Just make sure those feel pretty dry and pretty stuck. And we're gonna pop that right into our frame. Of course, to pop it into the frame, I first have to clean the acrylic. So let's do that. I'm running out of space here. Never the trouble. So these frames from American Frame, they come with the photo points already attached here, and you just fold them out of the way and then fold them back down. They will send it to you without that if you request it. Now, they always helpfully include, they tell you on here which side is the front that faces out. That is so helpful. And so I'm going to clean the inside first. And where did my gloves go? Here they are. So when you are dealing with the glass or the acrylic, you want to be wearing gloves, because no matter how clean your hands are, you are going to get fingerprints on that glass. If you are wearing, these are nitrile gloves, nitrile or latex gloves, you can't possibly get fingerprints on the glass. So when it's time, usually what I do, if I usually do a batch of paintings at once, and I get them all matted first. So I do all my hinging tape, I do all that stuff all in one go. And then after I do that, I put on my gloves and I prepare all the glass and get them in the frame. So I kind of do it like an assembly line, a one-woman assembly line. So as I mentioned before, this is a cleaning product that American Frame sells. It works pretty well. It doesn't take much. And I like to use these microfiber cloths. Just make sure everything is super clean. The last thing you want to do is seal the painting up, turn it over, and discover that there's fuzz or dust or fingerprints on the inside of the glass. That is just the worst. Nobody wants it. And I forgot, you know, often what I do when I get to this stage is I put down a nice clean dish towel. So let's do that. It just kind of keeps everything from sliding around. So just this is a freshly cleaned dish towel. And one thing I found, if you do go with this type of acrylic cleaner, it says on it, shake before using. They are not kidding. If you don't shake it, it is gonna be streaky. I learned that the hard way. All right, I think that inside is clean. Take the protective seal off here. So I buy the UV protective acrylic. I don't buy the anti-glare because it is so expensive. The acrylic is, as I said before, it's by far the most expensive part of the whole frame system. And so they sell, an American Frame, they sell several levels of surfaces. So you can get glass, you can get regular acrylic, UV protective acrylic, anti-glare, UV protective acrylic, and I think they even sell like one other higher level, like what they call like a museum quality. And for me, it's just too expensive. It would raise my cost too much. So I don't do it, but you know, it's all what works best for you. All right, I've got that outer facing very clean and streak free now. So I'm gonna pop that in. The great thing about the side that faces out is, of course, we'll clean it again at the end. We'll polish it again, really. Make sure it's not smudgy. I'm just gonna give the inside surface just like one more little swish here. Okay. And then pop my mat in place and press down my tabs, and I am done. Of course, now I have to paper the back and attach the wire. There's always one more step, friends, but the hard part is done. And there we have it. Nice and easy, framed and ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and paper this up and pop its wire on, and then my work here will be done for tonight. So what have we learned here today? We have learned that when you are shopping for frames, it is a really good idea to think carefully about preserving your work and using archival materials. So if you're going to be buying custom frames, definitely make sure that the mat and the backing are acid-free so that they aren't going to damage your work. If you have the option to get acrylic instead of glass, I definitely recommend it, and I highly recommend that you get UV protective acrylic so that that's going to, again, just preserve your work all the more. And overall, I just hope that other artists who are starting out the way that I was won't be afraid to frame their work. For me, this was so intimidating to learn, and I felt really proud of myself when I got to the point where I could confidently get my work into nice frames and feel like I was offering people a high quality product. So happy framing, happy creating, and I'll be back with more videos soon.